Evening, everybody. Hello. It's nice to have new faces, but I have got new faces this week, so that means I don't have to do the intro that everybody's heard God knows how many times. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming. It's quite strange, everybody's sort of spread out. Thank you for your suggestions, those of you that suggested topics.
We should have put them up there.
We can all be mindfully rude. It's okay. I've even done notes this week, I'm saying. So I thought I'd sort of pick off all of them, the 4 or 5 that we had. See how we go, chip in as we go along. And that fits quite well with the format, where we sort of mix it up a bit, and rather than do the two longer exercises, we sort of do some little ones throughout. So we can do an exercise, talk a little bit about one of these, and then do some more, and we'll see how we go. Okay. So before we get...
This is getting posher each week.
How?
Then it was a plastic cup. Now it's a glass.
Oh no, it's plastic.
Oh, is it?
It is plastic, yeah. But I brought one from home. I'll remember that. I'll bring a glass next week. I'm drinking it like that. Now let's start with a little bit of mindful breathing and the arm movement, just to get us focused and get us in the moment. So what we do, arms slightly out in front of us and to the side, and as we breathe in, we just bring the arms together until the fingers touch or the palms touch, and then as we breathe out, we just lower and part the arms. And we just repeat that several times. Breathe in, and then breathe out. And just follow each breath as it happens, in and out. Just be aware of the movement of your arms. Aware of each breath as it happens. Aware of that moment when the fingers and the palms touch. And aware of that moment when they part. Good. Okay. And when you're ready, relax and open your eyes, or open your eyes and relax, whichever order you feel most appropriate. So which one should we do first? I'll start at the top. And the first suggestion that I have on the list is coping with changes. Coping with changes. Which is a difficult one. Because a lot of people don't like change, do we? We don't like change. We don't like things being different. We like our routine, so we know what's coming and we know what to expect. And a lot of that comes from the way that our brains are programmed, the way that our brains have developed. There's a thing called heuristics, which is the patterns that our brain picks up on, so that it can make shortcuts. One thing happens and our brain fills in the gaps and goes, okay, well if that's happened, then this will happen, that happened, and that happened, and it can prepare itself for it. It can recognise patterns so that it can reduce the amount of work that it has to do. From the days when we were hunters and we would be out and we ran the risk of being eaten alive by bears or attacked by wild boars, our brains would tune in to being able to pick up the very first signals that there was a boar or a bear in the vicinity, so that we could respond quickly and get out of the way and not have to fight it or run or whatever, heuristics. So it's because of that that we like the comfort of knowing what's going to happen, of having routine, of things being boring and not changing. Of course, those of us that practice mindfulness and are in the present moment know that things are changing all the time. Change is the constant. That's the thing that we can guarantee. Everything is always different. Sometimes imperceptibly so, but things are always different. We've all sat in this church before and attended the Mindfulness Group. We may have sat in the same pew, but we're not sat in exactly the same spot. Maybe we're wearing, I've worn this t-shirt before, I'm afraid to say, but, things are different. I didn't have, the stubble wasn't exactly this length before. The hair was probably not, it was a bit longer now than it was. Everything, the quality of the light, the smells in the room, the sounds, everything in every moment is different. So change is happening all the time, whether we like it or not. And so, it's not the fact that we have to cope with the change. The thing that we have to cope with is the fact that we don't like the change. So that's what we have to cope with. We don't have to cope with the change, we have to cope with the fact that our brains don't feel comfortable with it and don't like it and don't want to embrace the fact that everything is always different. Even though it sometimes feels the same, it's not. So it's coping with the fact that we find it difficult to accept change. So how can we cope with that? Well, the easy way is to be mindful. If we can become mindful, and so we are not comparing this present moment with all those moments that have gone before. If we're there and we're present, then we embrace the change. We have the beginner's mind. So everything's new. And then any inner turmoil, any inner frustration that comes from struggling to accept that change, well, if we're mindful, we can bring it into our awareness. We can not study it, because we don't need to study it, but we can just be aware of it. And again, by becoming aware of it, it then loses its potency. Because that's often what it is, isn't it? With frustration and anxiety. We don't necessarily need to banish it. We just need it to lose its potency, so it doesn't do any damage. It's okay to be afraid. We've talked about fear before. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel anxious now and again. It's okay to feel frustrated. We don't want to be people that just have this flat line of emotion. That walk around with this beatific grin, with no emotion. That doesn't make us interesting people. There needs to be that fluctuation in our lives. There needs to be changes in mood, changes in temperament, changes in temper. And we need to be able to accept that. But when it does damage is when those changes in mood have potency. When we stew on it, when we allow it, when our egos latch onto it and allow it to begin to fester. So by being aware of it, recognising that fluctuation in temperament, it loses that hold it can have over us and that potency. Okay, so that's change. So let's do another little exercise and then we'll move on to the next one. Did that all sound fair enough? Is that true? I hope it's true. Feels true to me anyway, otherwise I wouldn't say it. Okay, so let's bring our awareness now to our senses. So we'll start by having a look around and just taking in what we can see. And some things are still the same. That light is still out, Helen. But other things are different. Other things have changed. Not my t-shirt. But when you've had a look around, you can close your eyes and just turn your awareness to your body and what you can feel. So aware that you have a head resting on the top of a neck that is acting under the influence of gravity and being pulled downwards, down through the shoulders. Be aware that you have arms, and that your arms again being drawn down by gravity, and that your arms are perhaps resting on your lap or on the seat next to you. However you're holding them, just be aware of how you are holding your arms. And be aware of your torso and your back. Again, the weight of gravity drawing down through the spine, down through your bottom into the seat. And aware that you have legs. At the end of the legs, feet in contact with the floor. Become aware that you can feel fabric against your skin. And then become aware that you can feel air moving across your skin. Just allow yourself to rest in the moment, feeling what you can feel. Aware that a part of your being is this body that has weight, has mass. Feel. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. We'll save the other senses for later. We're teasing it out. Next on the list, ignorance was a suggestion. We had ignorance. So there's two sides to ignorance. The ignorance of others and our own ignorance. Both very frustrating, or can be very frustrating. I guess the ignorance of others is often the most frustrating thing. But what's the one, if we're being mindful, what's the one aspect of other people's ignorance that is a truth? Anybody know? We can't change it. We can't. If we encounter an ignorant individual or somebody that we feel is displaying ignorance, nothing we can do about it, really. You know, we can communicate with them. We can attempt to maybe educate them in some way. But the fundamental truth is that we can't change other people. We only have the ability to control how we respond. So other people's ignorance, we just pretty much have to accept. Our own ignorance often comes from a closed mind, doesn't it? If we close our mind to new ideas, then we are ignorant. Ignorance is a function of ego. Ego is the thing that can be so damaging and dangerous. Ego is the thing that inflates our own sense of self-worth, but ego is also the part of our psychology which says all the nasty stuff. It's ego that says you're useless or you're stupid or you can't do this. And it's ego that says you don't need to know that. It's ego that says you should be closed-minded and ignorant. So how do we combat our own ignorance? To be open-minded. And the best way to be open-minded is to be mindful. Is it not? It's to just say, it's okay that I don't know everything. It's okay that I don't know that. It's alright not to know. You can't know everything. Our brains are pretty good and they can store a lot of information, but you don't have to know everything, and it's okay to say, I don't know everything. It's okay to say, I don't understand that. And then you can make a choice. You can either go off to get the information that you need, or just accept the fact that you don't know that or don't understand that, and carry on being alive and being in the present moment, and not labelling it as ignorance. I've talked about labels before, and that's, our own ignorance, that's all that is. It's just a label. A label for being closed-minded, a label that our egos apply to things. So, just be in the moment. Accept when you don't know something. And either be open to new ideas and new experiences that are offered to you in the present moment, or just accept that that's just the way it is. And that's the way to combat ignorance. Okay, let's go back to those senses now. So again, if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, or you can keep your eyes open. It's entirely up to you. But I'd like to just take a nice breath in through the nose and just smell. Just be aware of smell as it is at this moment in time. And now taste. Move your awareness to the taste in your mouth at this moment in time right now. And then move the awareness to hearing, to sound. And all we are doing is just accepting the sound, allowing the sound to enter our ears moment by moment. It's always changing. So if you can accept sound and be aware of sound changing all the time, then you're making steps towards accepting change and being aware of change. And as you listen, you'll find that now and again your mind will wander. And that's okay. Just accept that it's wandered. And then take the awareness back to just listening. When you're ready, open your eyes. The next one on the list we had. Focus the mind and be productive. This is one I struggle with, being productive. I can be prone to procrastination. Why do some work when you can read the news on BBC website, look at Facebook, or pick up a guitar and have a little bit of a strum. Because often the things that we need to be productive about, I'm talking about work more than anything, are not always the most exciting, the most thrilling of activities. You have to write a report or carefully craft some ridiculous email to somebody that we've never actually met. So in terms of focusing the mind, it's really a question of understanding what the barriers are to your productivity. What is it that stands in the way of you doing the things that you need to do? Because productivity is different to creativity. Creativity, I find if I'm in a pursuit where I have to be creative, I find that a lot easier because I enjoy that. I enjoy being creative. So if it's something that I enjoy, there are fewer barriers there. It's easier to motivate yourself to do something if you enjoy it. But productivity often means doing things that we don't enjoy. So this is where my 3 buzzwords come in. Enjoy, enthuse, accept. So if there's a task at hand, our productivity demands that we sit down and produce something. If we can enjoy that activity, then it's easy. The barriers remove themselves because we are going to enjoy it, so we just dive straight in. If it's not something that we can enjoy, but we appreciate that there are things we might learn, there are elements that we may be able to get some reward from, then we can at least be enthusiastic about it. We'll give it a go. We'll get stuck in. And then the final one is accept. And if we do have to spend the next half an hour carefully crafting that fairly dull email to the person that we've never even met, then just accept the fact that you've got to do it. Get it done. And know that that's the task for this moment. And once you've done that, then you can procrastinate. Look at Facebook and the BBC website, play the guitar. Enjoy, infuse, accept. You need to focus the mind and be productive. Stick with those three. And more often than not, it's the latter. Just accept it. Because that is what this present moment not demands, it's what this moment offers us. So we accept it. And then okay. We've got a new little exercise. Not very good English, but it's something that I want to try. And this one requires a bit of audience participation, so this might be fun. And this, I suppose it's sort of originally it's kind of a team bonding thing. Not that I want this to be a team bonding exercise. Yay, go team, do your mindfulness. But I saw it being done, and thought actually, I can see it being a bonding thing, but actually, it's an exercise in mindfulness. It's a little mindful exercise in awareness. So, and it's quite simple. So it involves clapping. What happens is, I stand like that, and you do the same. Okay? And when I clap, you clap. And the idea is that we get to the point where it doesn't sound like 10 people randomly clapping. It sounds like one clap. Okay? Because we're all in the moment, and we're all aware, and it just becomes one clap. Okay? Are you ready? And I'm not going to count in. It's not 3, 2, 1 clap. Because that would be cheating. That would be easy. You have to be in the moment and aware and watching me and engage. Okay, here we go. Not bad. Not bad. Better. Notice the difference. Okay. See, it's good, isn't it? It's like, what's the Blazing Saddles? You know Blazing Saddles? And he's got the chest piece. He says clap. And then he pulls it out. Love that film. I can't wait till my little boy's old enough to watch that. So, buy him a scale electric and sit him down to watch Blazing Saddles. They're the two defining moments. Those rites of passage. Oh, wait. What, scale electric and baked beans? Excellent. Right, you ready? Oh, you're getting good. You're getting good. One more. Nice. Good. Go team mindfulness. Okay, but one more thing to talk about before we do some breathing. Self-belief. And this one interested me, I must admit. I started thinking about it. And the first thing that came to mind was because self-belief, that, it's a very positive thing in it. If you've got self-belief, it's a positive trait, a positive ability, thing to have. And it brought to mind the quote from Henry Ford. Henry Ford, the gentleman behind mass production of automobiles. He came out with lots of great sayings and quotes and things like that. But one of the things that he said particularly was, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right. And it's true. If you believe you can't do something, you won't do it. If you believe you can do something, chances are you'll find a way. You'll be able to do it. So that, for me, in terms of quotes about self-belief, that sums it up. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right. And then I sort of was thinking about it a bit more and then flipped it round. Rather than self-belief, there's belief in the self. So what is the self that we should believe in? What is this self that we have to have belief in order to achieve, or in order to be happy, or whatever it is? And of course, the first self that comes screaming to the forefront, that says, me, I'm the self, it's me, I'm the one with all of the skills and the ability that can do these wonderful things, is the ego. Again, that's the first one that comes up. And is that what we want to believe in? Do we want to have belief in our ego? Because as we practice mindfulness and our ego quietens down, because we just sit and are aware and allow ourselves to just be in the moment, which is obviously incredibly free from ego. Can't possibly, if it's ego that we're believing in, then we can't possibly have any self-belief. If that's what we're going to, or rather, if by being mindful that just dissipates and disappears. And because ego, as I've said before this evening, ego is the bit, there's a part of us that generates all the negative stuff as well, the bit that tells us that we're no good at something. Fat, stupid, ugly, whatever. The ego is incredibly insecure. Incredibly insecure. So that, again, that doesn't fit in with self-belief and confidence. So it can't be that. That can't be the self that we have, that we can believe in. So it must be the real self. The real you. The real you. Some of you may remember a meeting we had when I talked about the real you. I took my clothes off for those of you. Removed the layers to get to the real me. And the real you, the real self, is that part of your being that is the observer. So when you sit and you're mindful and you're just aware, and then the ego can start doing its thing and generating all these thoughts, but you're still able to just be observing them and aware of the fact that the mind's wandered and that these thoughts and ideas are coming in, and just observe them. And as you practice mindfulness and you're able to observe how you feel, so going back to what we were saying at the beginning about those fluctuations in temperament, and becoming aware of when you feel anxious, when you feel frustrated, that's the observer, again. Sat back slightly, watching, like the two old men in the Muppets. Just the observer that doesn't judge. No, not like the ego does. Doesn't judge these things. Doesn't label things. Just observes them in the moment. That's the real self. That's the real you. That's timeless. That isn't comparing everything with the past. That isn't labelling things. That isn't concerned about how these things will future, or how these things will change in the future. How they might bend or deform, or whatever might happen to things. It's just an observer, in the moment, present. That's the real you. So that's what practicing mindfulness is about. It's about connecting with the real you, the observer, that is removed from ego. Removed from past and future. That just observes. And that part of you that is the essential component of being alive. You can feel life within your body. I'll move around and I breathe and I feel alive. But it's not the fact that I can move. It's not the fact that I can breathe. It's not the fact that I'm thinking. Descartes was completely wrong when he said, I think, therefore I am. No. It's not any of those things that is my life. It's something almost bigger than that. And it's part of that is the observer connected to that. And connects me with all of you, and connects me and you with the wood that makes up the surroundings, and the stone that makes up the building, and the plants outside, and everything. Everything that all matter and energy and all of that that exists or is alive connects all of us together in the present moment. That's the real self. So if you can begin to develop an awareness and a belief in the real you, the observer, your being, your aliveness, and the being and the aliveness of everything else, then you've really got something positive and powerful. You know, more positive and more powerful than any kind of belief in the ego and what that can generate. And that sounds a bit, you know, I don't want that to come across as being a bit as being overly preachy or spiritual, because I don't intend it to be. Just that being alive is such a precious and wonderful, powerful, positive thing that if you can spare a few moments to be aware of that, to just feel it and just be it, being alive, just be it and believe in it, then you'll have this incredible strength and positivity. So let's breathe, let's be alive. So close your eyes if you wish, and feel the breath as you breathe in and then breathe out. You can start at the nostrils and be aware of the breath at the very point that it enters and leaves the body. You can follow the breath back and be aware of the breath at the back of your throat, behind the soft palate, as the air travels up and down. Now be aware of the breath at the top of your chest. Be aware of the movement and the rise and the fall of your chest as you breathe in and out. And now be aware of the breath at the diaphragm, the very base of your breathing. Now I'd like to connect all of it together so you're aware of the whole system. From breathing in and the air entering your nostrils and travelling down, back of your throat, down through your chest, all the way down to the bottom of your diaphragm. And then the reverse as you breathe out. All the way up and out through your nostrils. And then become aware of the pause between breaths. Breathe in, you breathe out, And then there is a moment of stillness. And in that moment of stillness, allow yourself to just be, to feel the aliveness within your being. Just being alive in that pause between breaths. Be aware of the fact that in that pause, in that moment of stillness, that present moment then, you're sharing it with everybody here, with everybody else on the planet, with all the animals, everything that exists, all matter, all energy. You're sharing that pause, that moment of stillness with everything and everyone. Everything exists and is alive in that moment. And in connecting with everything and everyone, in that moment, in this moment, you are connecting with the real you, feeling alive, being alive. Being a part of all life in this moment. If you feel nothing else, just feel a smile like that. Just allow yourself to smile in that pause. Feel the energy of a smile. Smiling at life. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you everybody for coming. I'll see you next week. Have a good week. And keep the suggestions coming. I'm just being lazy really.